Will you marry me? Maya blinked, hard. The cup in her hand nearly slipped. The hospital room went silent, too silent. Wesley Clanton lay weak against the pillows, oxygen hissing softly beside him, but his eyes were steady, serious, unshaken. She swallowed. "Sir, you just collapsed. You're barely awake. You can't be—" "I'm not confused," he whispered, voice low but sharp enough to cut the air. "I need a wife, immediately, and I'm willing to pay you very well." Maya's heartbeat slammed against her ribs. A man she'd served breakfast for months, quiet, polite, alone, was now asking her to be his wife? "Why me?" she breathed. "Wait, before we go deeper, if this story already has you hooked, hit subscribe right now and tell us where you are watching from in the comments. I want to welcome you personally. Today's shout-out goes to Julia from New York. Here on this channel, you're not just watching stories, you're part of them. Stay with me. Every story is bigger than the last, and I want you to be here when the next twist drops. The morning air always smelled different by the sea. Soft, salty, warm, like the world was trying to whisper calm into anyone who walked close enough to hear it. Wesley Clanton usually loved that feeling. It was why he came to this same seaside cafe every morning. Same table, same corner, same cup of black coffee that everyone assumed he barely tasted. The staff smiled at him, other customers stole discreet glances, but no one ever actually approached him. Not directly. People didn't approach billionaires, especially this billionaire. But this morning, something felt wrong. Maya sensed it before she understood it. She was wiping down a table near the window, humming softly, letting the early sun warm her arms through the glass. She wasn't thinking about customers or tips, or the fact that her shoes probably needed replacing 3 months ago. She was simply moving with the rhythm of the morning crowd. Then she saw him pause. Wesley Clanton, the man whose presence usually filled a room like gravity, just stopped moving. He stood beside his table, blinking too slowly, shoulders rising as if the air had suddenly become heavier. Maya watched his fingers tremble as he reached for the back of the chair. He missed. The chair clattered to the floor. Maya froze, a gasp trapped in her throat. It happened fast, yet painfully slow. Wesley's body tilted, knees buckling. A woman screamed, dishes crashed. A server dropped an entire tray of croissants. Someone yelled his name, someone else fumbled for their phone, and before the shock had even settled over the cafe, Wesley Clanton collapsed to the ground. "Call an ambulance!" Maya shouted, already dropping to her knees beside him. "Now!" Her voice sliced through the chaos. She didn't know how she moved so fast, didn't know how her hands found his pulse, or why her body reacted before her mind caught up. But she was there, crouched beside the most powerful man she'd ever served coffee to, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear anything else. Sir, can you hear me?" Wesley didn't respond. His breathing was shallow. Too shallow. A ripple of panic lifted the room into full chaos. Customers backed away, whispering. Someone cried. A man cursed under his breath as he dialed emergency services. And Maya, shaking, placed a hand lightly on Wesley's shoulder to steady him in case he seized. His skin felt warm. Too warm. "Hang on," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was comforting him or herself. The cafe manager rushed over. "Maya, don't touch, let the medics—" "He's still breathing," Maya said sharply. "That's all that matters." A few agonizing seconds later, the front doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in with equipment, voices loud and clipped. "What happened?" "He collapsed, overheated, maybe heart. Back up, please." They worked quickly. Oxygen mask, vitals check, stretcher. Maya moved out of the way only when they lifted him. Her stomach twisted as she watched Wesley's normally composed face, now slack and pale, his lips slightly parted beneath the mask. They pushed the stretcher toward the exit. Maya's feet moved before her brain agreed. "I'm coming with you," she said breathlessly, following them. One paramedic blocked her path. "Family only." I was with him when—" "I'm sorry," the man said firmly. "We'll notify the hospital he wasn't alone, but you can't ride with us. You can follow behind if you want." The doors slammed shut. The ambulance wailed and sped off. Maya stood on the sidewalk, chest heaving, heart hammering, watching until the lights disappeared down the street. And then the adrenaline drained out of her all at once. She leaned against the brick wall beside the café door, hands covering her mouth, trying not to cry. She didn't know him, not really. He wasn't her friend, he wasn't her family. He was a customer, a quiet one at that, who sometimes nodded at her when she brought his breakfast. But something about the way he fell, the sudden fragility of a man who carried an empire on his shoulders, it shook her. "Are you okay?" her manager asked softly. "No," she whispered, "but I'm going to the hospital." He didn't stop her. The hospital waiting room felt colder than the cafe, colder than outside, colder than anything she'd stepped into that morning. Maya sat in a hard plastic chair, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. They had rushed him in through the emergency wing, doctors and nurses swarming him, and she had really tried, to follow, but they stopped her. "Ma'am, you'll have to wait outside. We'll come get you if anyone can speak to you." Outside, wait, if. The words repeated in her head like a cruel echo. She stared at the double doors they'd disappeared through, as if the force of her gaze alone could keep him breathing. Every time someone in scrubs walked out, her heart jumped, and fell again when they passed her without stopping. Minutes stretched, then an hour, then another. Her anxiety grew with each tick of the clock. At one point, she stood and paced. At another, she sat and buried her face in her hands. She replayed the scene over and over. His fall, his stillness, her shaking hands on his shoulder. What if she hadn't reached him in time? What if she didn't do enough? What if... "Ma'am!" She jerked her head up. A nurse noticed her hesitation and nudged her gently. "He's awake, and he's been asking for you." Her stomach flipped. Maya stepped inside. Wesley turned his head at the sound of her footsteps, and just for a moment, something unguarded flickered in his eyes. Relief? Gratitude? She wasn't sure. "Maya," he said, voice soft but clearer than before. She managed a small smile. I brought you breakfast. It's not cafe fancy, just oatmeal, fruit and a little honey. Hospital food is basically punishment." A low, tired chuckle escaped him. "I appreciate it. Thank you." She moved closer and set the tray on his bedside table, trying not to make too much noise. Every small clink of silverware felt like it echoed in the room. "You didn't have to come back," he said after a moment. "I know," Maya replied softly. "But you collapsed in front of me. You scared me." She didn't say the rest. Instead, she pulled a small container of honey from her apron pocket. "I brought you the good kind. From the local beekeeper. You always order it with your breakfast." His brows lifted. "You noticed?" Maya flushed. "You're a regular. And you're particular." Wesley smiled faintly. "That's a polite way to say I'm difficult." She shook her head. "No, you're observant. Quiet. You always sit in the same corner like you're watching the waves and thinking about something deep." A shadow passed through his expression, brief but unmistakable. "There's a lot I think about these days," he murmured. Maya stayed quiet. She didn't want to pry. She just wanted him to eat before the oatmeal turned into cement. Wesley lifted the spoon, studying it as if gathering strength, then took a slow bite. He exhaled softly. "This is good. Real honey makes everything better," she said lightly. But she could feel the tension in the room tightening again. He wasn't eating faster. He wasn't relaxing. He wasn't casually chatting. He was studying her, really studying her. "Maya," he said finally, voice shifting into something heavier. "Can I ask you something? A personal question?" Her heart skipped. "I guess so." He set the spoon down, shoulders sinking. "Do you have family?" Maya blinked. No, not really. My mom passed when I was 10. My aunt raised me, but she's gone too." She shrugged, trying not to let her voice break. "It's just me." Wesley inhaled deeply, his gaze softening. "I'm sorry." "It's okay," she said quickly. "I've been on my own a long time." He nodded slowly, as if the answer meant something deeper to him than she understood. "And your dreams?" he asked next. "My, dreams?" "Yes. What do you want in life?" Maya laughed nervously. "That's a big question. It's an important one." She fiddled with her fingers. "Well, someday I want to open my own restaurant. Nothing fancy, just a small place where people can eat good food and feel at home." His eyes warmed. "That sounds beautiful." "Yeah," she said softly. "But dreams are expensive, and I'm just trying to survive right now." Silence stretched. Comfortable at first, then waited. Wesley took a slow breath. "Maya, I need to tell you something. Something I haven't told a soul in years." Her heart tightened. "Okay." He lifted his gaze to hers, not a billionaire's gaze, not a powerful man's gaze, just a man who looked tired and alone. "Will you marry me?" Maya blinked, hard. The cup in her hand nearly slipped. The hospital room went silent, too silent. Wesley Clanton lay weak against the pillows, oxygen hissing softly beside him, but his eyes were steady. Serious, unshaken, she swallowed. "Sir, you just collapsed. You're barely awake. You can't be—" "I'm not confused," he whispered, voice low but sharp enough to cut the air. "I need a wife, immediately, and I'm willing to pay you very well." Maya's heartbeat slammed against her ribs. A man she'd served breakfast for months, quiet, polite, alone, was now asking her to be his wife. "Why me?" she breathed. "I'm dying." The words hit harder than she expected. Maya felt her stomach drop. "What? No, you're stabilizing, the doctor." "I have a rare genetic condition," he said quietly. "It's unpredictable. Some days I'm fine. Some days I collapse in a café and wake up in a hospital bed." She swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Mr. Clanton. I didn't know." "No one knows," he whispered. "By design." Her eyes stung, but she forced the tears back. She wasn't sure why she felt so much. He wasn't family, he wasn't a friend, but hearing him say it so calmly broke something inside her. Wesley continued. "My relatives, they're waiting for me to die, waiting to tear my empire apart piece by piece. They've been circling like vultures for years. All I've built, my resorts, my companies, my foundation, everything, will fall into the wrong hands." He paused, breathing carefully. "And the only way to stop them is to secure an heir." Maya blinked, confusion swirling. "An heir?" "Yes." Her pulse quickened. She didn't like where this was going. "I don't have a wife. I don't have children." His gaze hardened. "And my time is running out." Maya stepped back slightly.
"Wesley? What are you saying?"
He reached for the bedside remote, raised the bed to sit more upright, and then looked at her with full seriousness. "I need someone I can trust," he said. "Someone without ties to my greedy family, someone who doesn't care about status or money, someone who has shown kindness without expecting anything in return." Her breath hitched. "And that person," he finished, "is you." Maya's heart pounded so hard she felt dizzy. "Mr. Clanton, I don't understand." He took a slow, shaking breath. "Maya, will you enter a contract marriage with me?" The room fell silent. Dead silent. Her pulse roared in her ears. He wasn't joking. He wasn't delirious. He wasn't confused. He was serious, terribly serious. "You want to marry me?" she whispered. "For protection," he said. "For legal control of my assets, for a future heir. Not out of romance, not out of convenience, out of necessity." She took a step back. "Wesley, I'm a waitress, and I'm a dying billionaire," he replied. "Neither title means anything if my empire ends up in the wrong hands." Maya shook her head, stunned. Why me?" "Because you saved my life," he said simply. "Because you have nothing to gain from this unless I give it to you. Because I watched you for months and saw your integrity. Because you're the only person I trust right now. Her breath trembled. It would be fully legal, he continued. I'd compensate you handsomely, $1 million up front, a monthly stipend, full support, and when the time comes, my child would inherit everything. Maya felt her knees weaken. Child? Yes. Her hand flew to her mouth. This wasn't just marriage, this wasn't just a contract. This was life-changing, terrifying, impossible. Maya, he said gently, I'm giving you an offer most people would kill for, but I'm not asking for an answer now. I'm asking you to think about it. She stepped back further, struggling to breathe normally. Mr. Clanton, this is a lot. I know. I don't even know you. You know enough. And a child, that's huge. I understand. You're dying. Yes, he said firmly, and that's exactly why time is not my luxury. Maya stared at him, this powerful man who looked at her like she was the lifeline he'd been waiting for. Her voice came out small. I need time. He nodded slowly. Take it. Maya swallowed hard, grabbed her empty food bag, and stepped toward the door. Her hand trembled on the handle. She didn't know what she was walking away from, or what she might be walking into. Whatever your decision, Wesley said, voice calm but heavy. It will change both of our lives. She turned back just for a second. His eyes held hers with quiet desperation, not fear of death, fear of being betrayed, fear of losing everything, fear of trusting the wrong person. And somehow she understood, but she still whispered the only thing she could manage. I'll think about it. Then she walked out, leaving him alone with his machines and his secrets. Maya barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, Wesley's voice echoed in her head. A contract marriage, an heir, $1 million, and a dying man who trusted her more than his own blood. She lay on her old sofa in her tiny studio apartment, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, trying to breathe through the storm inside her chest. Marry a man she barely knew, carry his child, walk into a world that wasn't hers. It sounded insane, irresponsible, immoral. But then her eyes drifted to the stack of overdue bills on her kitchen table, her landlord's final warning taped to the door, her mother's old recipe book, her dream restaurant, the one she might never afford. Her life was a maze of dead ends. Wesley's offer was a door, a terrifying one, but still a door. She pressed a hand to her face, trembling. God, she whispered into the darkness, what am I supposed to do? Silence answered her, but her heart whispered the same thing over and over. This could change everything. Maya found herself standing outside the hospital again. She wasn't sure how she got there. Her feet carried her on instinct. The nurse recognized her and smiled softly. He's awake. He's been expecting you. Expecting her. The words made her chest tighten. She walked in slower this time, feeling the weight of every step. The room was brighter today. Sunlight spilled across the floor and warmed the edges of Wesley's blanket. He looked better. Not healthy, but present. His eyes lifted the moment she entered. Maya. Just her name, but it sounded like he'd been holding it all night. She swallowed hard. I came to talk? He nodded and motioned to the chair beside him. Sit. She sat. He waited. She exhaled shakily. I thought about your offer. A flicker of emotion crossed his face. Fear, hope, something deeper. He didn't rush her. He didn't push. What did you decide? He asked quietly. Maya twisted her fingers together, breath shaking.
I think... Another breath. I think I'm willing to help you, but I need to understand what I'm walking into. Wesley's shoulders dropped in quiet relief. Ask me anything. She met his eyes. Why me? I need the exact truth, not the soft version, not the polite version. Wesley nodded slowly, studying her like she was a truth he'd waited years to speak aloud. Because you don't want anything from me, he said. Because you treated me with kindness before you knew my name. Because the world I live in is full of people who want to take, but you gave. Maya felt heat crawl into her cheeks, but her voice stayed steady. That still doesn't explain marriage. Wesley took a slow breath. I need a wife to legally secure my empire, he said. If I die without one, my relatives seize everything.
They will destroy the resort you love, the town, my employees, everything. They'll tear it apart for profit. Maya's chest tightened. And I need an heir, he added. The word hung like cold smoke in the air. That's the only way to guarantee my legacy stays protected. She stared at him. You're asking for a lot. I know. It's not just marriage. It's my body, my life. I know. And you expect me to just trust you? He didn't flinch. No, I expect you to think and choose for yourself. Her throat thickened. That was the thing about Wesley. He wasn't forcing her. He wasn't manipulating her. He was laying his life into her hands like she mattered, like she was more than a waitress, more than a stranger, more than she had ever been to anyone. She inhaled slowly. The money, she said softly. That's life-changing, but I don't want to be someone you bought. Wesley leaned back, eyes steady. Then don't be. Her brows furrowed. What does that mean? It means, he said, walk into this contract with your dignity intact, your terms, your boundaries. I'm not buying a wife, I'm securing a future, and I chose you, because something about you feels right. There was something in his voice, something reverent, something aching, that made Maya feel suddenly breathless. She wiped her palms on her jeans. How long? She whispered. Wesley hesitated, then answered honestly. My doctors estimate 1 to 2 years. His voice didn't break, but something in her did. You'd be taken care of for the rest of your life, he added. Financially, legally, safely. Maya closed her eyes. This wasn't a fairy tale, this wasn't a romance. This was a life-changing decision tied to a dying man's last hope. She opened her eyes again and whispered, I'll do it. Wesley's chest rose sharply, like the air had rushed back into him after being gone too long. Thank you, Maya, he said softly. You've given me more than you know. Maya stood outside the wrought-iron gates, staring up at the sprawling Clanton estate. Calling it a mansion was an understatement. This was a world, a kingdom, a living monument of wealth and legacy. The gates opened slowly, silently, swallowing her into a life she never imagined for herself. Wesley's driver guided her through polished marble halls, past towering windows, past portraits of people who all looked like they'd been born rich enough to never worry about anything. She swallowed. Her simple tote bag felt like an insult to the opulence around her. When they reached Wesley's foyer, he was already waiting, standing tall in a dark sweater, leaning slightly on a cane. He smiled gently. Welcome home, Maya. Home. The word made her chest ache. She stepped inside and instantly felt it. The weight, the tension, the unseen eyes. Something about this place watched her, measured her, expected something from her she didn't understand yet. Wesley walked closer, slower than a healthy man, but more gracefully than someone dying. There's a room prepared for you, he said softly. You'll have privacy, freedom, and anything you need. Maya nodded, though her heart raced. Maya followed Wesley through the quiet hallway of the mansion, her footsteps echoing against marble floors that felt too polished for someone like her. Everything smelled of old money, mahogany, leather, a hint of ocean breeze drifting through tall windows. Her room was beautiful, too beautiful, a place that didn't feel earned. She set her small bag on the edge of the velvet bed, still replaying his words. You'll have privacy, freedom, and anything you need. Why would a billionaire offer all this to her? Before she could settle, a knock sounded. A house attendant stepped inside. Miss Maya, Mr. Clanton asked me to inform you. The doctor just arrived with the test results he ordered. Test results? Maya's stomach tightened. But I didn't take any tests. The attendant hesitated. Mr. Clanton did. He asked for a full medical evaluation after the collapse, and he requested a second file be run using an item that belonged to you. Her heart stumbled. An item?
What item? He gestured gently. The apron you wore this morning? He gave it to the hospital team. Maya didn't understand, but she followed anyway. Down the hall, back to the quiet room where Wesley sat up right now, his eyes fixed on a single folder in the doctor's hands. The door closed behind her. Wesley lifted his gaze slowly, and for the first time since she met him, he looked afraid. The doctor cleared his throat. Mr. Clanton, Miss Maya, the results have come back. He opened the folder. Maya had never heard a room go silent so fast. The doctor continued, choosing his words with careful precision. There is a 99.9% DNA match between you two. Maya blinked. What? Wesley's breath left him in a shudder. His hands trembled. Something deep and broken flickered across his face. Maya, he whispered, voice cracking.
You're my daughter. The world tilted. Her heart slammed against her ribs, her vision swimming. No, that's impossible. The doctor laid the papers on the bed. I'm afraid it's conclusive. Wesley swallowed, struggling to speak. I didn't know. I ordered the test because something about you felt familiar. I couldn't explain it. Maya shook her head wildly. But you asked me to marry you. You offered me money. I didn't know you were mine. Wesley's voice broke. Maya, they stole you from me 23 years ago. I spent half my life searching. I buried an empty coffin. Her knees weakened. Her whole life. A lie? Her real father? A billionaire she met by accident? Tears slipped down her cheeks. I don't know what to do with this. Wesley reached out but stopped himself. You don't have to decide anything right now. I'll fix the marriage contract. I'll end it. I don't care about the company, the relatives, the empire. Only you. Maya stepped back, shaking. I need time. She turned, her breath ragged, her world shattering, and stepped into the hall. She didn't see the shadow at the end of the corridor, the relative who wanted the empire, the one who watched her arrive at the mansion, the one who now knew the truth, and wouldn't let Maya live long enough to claim her place. 23 years ago, Wesley Clanton's life was full, but fragile in ways no fortune could protect. His wife, Eleanor, had just given birth to a baby girl. Wesley held her in his arms for the first time, marveling at the small, perfect fingers that curled around his own. He whispered promises he would keep for the rest of his life, love, protection, and a life without pain. But the world had other plans. One stormy night, a trusted family friend, someone who Wesley had counted on, betrayed him. In a twisted scheme, the baby girl was taken from his hospital room. Security cameras conveniently malfunctioned, and the staff, some coerced, some bribed, turned a blind eye. By morning, she was gone. Wesley searched everywhere, hospitals, shelters, even the streets of distant towns. He combed through every record, every tip, every whisper. But it was as if the earth itself had swallowed her. Months turned into years. Letters came, supposed sightings, fake leads, dead ends. Each one tore his heart a little more. The pain of loss became a shadow over his empire. He buried himself in work, building a fortune and a life that could shield him from grief. Yet, at night, when the city lights faded and the mansion was silent, he would imagine her small hands, her laughter, the way she would smile at him. And then he did what no father ever wants to do. He held a funeral. Not for the living, but for the hope of ever finding her. He named the coffin, whispered the goodbye, and promised that he would never forget her. I'll find you one day, he had said, voice breaking, even if I have to tear the world apart. Little did he know, life had already set her on a path that would lead her back to him. Maya McGee, the child who survived, had been raised by strangers who didn't know her origin. She grew up with her mother, Nikki, who did everything to shield her, from the harsh realities of the world. Yet some part of her, the stubbornness, the kindness, the courage, was inherited, something Wesley would later recognize without knowing why. And for 23 years Wesley lived under the weight of a fortune that felt hollow, a mansion that felt empty, and a grief that never healed. Until the day Maya walked into his café, unaware of who he was, and unknowingly stepping back into the life he thought he had lost forever. And in that moment, the universe began correcting the wrongs of the past. Maya stepped hesitantly into the grand mansion, her shoes clicking softly against the polished marble floors. Every corner, every piece of furniture, every painting whispered wealth. But none of it felt like home. None of it had ever been hers. She paused in the hallway, glancing at the family portraits lining the walls. Men and women in tailored suits, children in elegant dresses, faces she didn't recognize. And yet, she had always felt like something was missing, some piece of herself that had never fit anywhere. Wesley appeared beside her without a sound, his presence calm but commanding. "You don't have to rush through this," he said softly. "I know this is a lot." Maya turned to him, meeting his eyes. There was no arrogance there, no expectation, just a quiet, raw honesty that made her chest tighten. "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to see it, all of it. I need to understand why now." He nodded and gestured toward the lounge. "Then let me show you everything I've built, every corner of this place. It's yours, Maya, not because of money, not because of contracts, but because you belong here." They walked together, step by careful step, through the expansive halls. Wesley pointed out rooms, shared stories of their family legacy, memories of a daughter he thought he had lost forever. Maya listened, sometimes laughing softly, sometimes biting her lip to hold back tears. She had never imagined that the man before her, the stranger she had helped that morning, the man whose life she had unwittingly touched, was actually her father. At one point, Wesley stopped in front of a massive window overlooking the ocean. Sunlight spilled across the terrace, catching the waves in a golden shimmer. He leaned against the railing, looking at her with something that felt like hope, fear, and love all at once. "Do you remember the café?" he asked, a hint of warmth in his tone. Maya blinked. "The morning you collapsed?" He nodded. "That's when I first realized. The world had sent me a gift in disguise. I never expected it to be you, my daughter, right there, standing in front of me." Her breath caught. She had imagined countless scenarios about meeting her father one day, but never like this. Never as a man who had carried her absence in his heart every day for 23 years. Maya struggled for words, her hands twisting in front of her. "I don't even know how to feel. Angry? Sad? Happy? Confused?" "All of it is allowed," Wesley said, moving closer. He gently took her hands in his, careful not to overwhelm her. "I made mistakes. Life took you from me, and yet, somehow, you're here. That's what matters now. That's what I want to hold on to." Maya swallowed, letting his words sink in. For the first time, the weight she had carried for years, the emptiness, the questions, the longing, felt like it could be lifted. She allowed herself a small nod. I want that too," she admitted. "But I need time. I need to learn how to be your daughter, not just someone you found." He smiled softly, relief and tenderness shining in his eyes. "Then we'll take all the time you need. No rush, no expectations. Just you and me, rebuilding what was lost." Over the following days, their lives began to weave together. Wesley showed her the mansion, introduced her to the household staff, and even invited her to join him in the small, quiet moments he had once spent alone. Meals became something they shared. Simple conversations, laughter over small stories, debates over trivial things. Slowly, Maya felt herself belonging, not to the mansion or the money, but to the man who had always been her father, even when he didn't know it. One evening, they sat together on the terrace, the sky painted in streaks of pink and gold. Maya rested her head on Wesley's shoulder, feeling the gentle rise and fall of his chest, the steady beat of a heart that had waited decades to reconnect with hers. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "For finding me," she replied. "For letting me be your daughter. For letting me come home." Wesley held her close, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Welcome home, Maya. Welcome home." And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the empire, not the money, not the years lost. All that mattered was this: a father and daughter finally reunited, finally whole, and finally beginning the life they were always meant to share. The mansion, once a symbol of distance and wealth, now held laughter, warmth, and the promise of new beginnings. And for the first time in 23 years, Wesley and Maya knew what it truly meant to be a family. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.